A real crime. In a series of podcasts, I want you to travel down some lonely roads with me. These are the roads I traveled with families who never got to say goodbye to loved ones. These family members were fated to live the rest of their lives waiting and wondering. I will begin this series with unsolved murders, but I will also revisit cases that include arrests because aspects of the case are worth re examining. I wrote these stories when I worked as a reporter for the Charleston Gazette. Thanks for joining me today. I want to conclude the case of Edward Friedrichs Jr. with an accounting of his trial for the murder of Jeremy Bell. Episode 29, Absurd. On July 30th, 2005, Edward Friedrichs Jr. took the stand to defend himself against murder charges. By that time, he'd already been convicted of sexually abusing his former elementary school students, but he had never faced any charge related to Jeremy Bell. Friedrichs brought Bell and another former student to his remote cabin along the New River for a fishing trip. Bell died in his cabin. The man who thought he was the smartest guy in the room had to take another shot in hopes of avoiding a murder conviction. Few defendants take the stand. They're not required to defend themselves. Most defense attorneys will explain, once you're on the stand, the prosecutor will also have the right to question you. Friedrichs did not take the stand when he was on trial for sex charges. Fayetteville lawyer James Keenan represented Friedrichs at the murder trial. In answers to Keenan's careful questions, Friedrichs told the jury he accepted responsibility for Jeremy Bell's death. This responsibility, as Friedrichs said he saw it, was to keep people safe on his property. He admitted he was careless with a deadly toxin he had at his cabin. "I was remiss, very much so," Friedrichs said as his lawyer questioned him. But he said he didn't murder Bell. The questions and answers between lawyer and client went smoothly. Friedrichs wandered down some verbal lanes, some aimed to hurt Bell's father, who was in the courtroom, but others were clear absurdity. Friedrichs went to great trouble and expense to stock his cabin with plenty of junk food and plenty of items for his students to drink. The paramedic who arrived on the scene after Bell died noted that all the food and drink would suit the tastes of adolescent boys. At trial, the prosecutor also showed jurors a picture of the contents of the cabin's refrigerator to show that any student who visited the cabin could have his choice of soft drinks and juices. But Friedrichs said that when Bell got thirsty in the night, Bell went under the kitchen sink, pulled out some chloroform, and drank it. On its own, that is completely absurd. But Friedrichs added to the farce by saying Bell told him it gave him a buzz. At his trial, Friedrichs admitted he purchased chloroform, but he said he used it to kill bugs. We now know that Friedrichs purchased almost a gallon of chloroform and had it shipped in his name to his elementary school. On the stand, Friedrichs said that the chloroform he had left over after killing bugs, he placed in a sports drink bottle and put it under the kitchen sink. Friedrichs said the bottle was nearly full. "I should not have had it there to start with," Friedrichs testified about the chloroform. And of course, everyone knows you would head straight under the kitchen sink instead of the well-stocked refrigerator if you felt thirst. Friedrichs testified that after Bell took a drink of the chloroform and claimed it gave him a buzz, he took it away from his former student. "You stay away from that," he said he admonished, and at that point, I put the top on it and put it away. Friedrichs apparently could not stop himself and went on to tell of a conversation he and Bell had. Of course, Bell was dead at the time of this imagined conversation, but why let this fact get in the way of how Friedrichs hoped to defend himself? Experts testified that no 12-year-old would mistakenly drink chloroform. As the substance got close to the nose, that would be enough to warn the would-be drinker off. If his student actually did drink chloroform, his mouth and throat would burn. If his student did drink chloroform, why wouldn't Friedrichs rush him to an emergency room? Why wouldn't Friedrichs tell the paramedic who arrived at the cabin? The burning would certainly prevent someone from talking. In his tall tale, though, Friedrichs testified that he and Bell talked of many things that were on Bell's mind. All of this happened after he said Bell knocked back the chloroform. In an extremely unusual move, in his closing remarks, Friedrichs' lawyer told the jurors he could not ask them to believe Friedrichs' explanation of how chloroform got in Bell's system. Two assistant Fayette County prosecutors, Tom Steele and Anthony Ciliberti, brought Friedrichs to trial for Bell's murder. Under questioning from prosecutors, Friedrichs said he had been prescribed amitriptyline by a doctor, but he said he did not believe he had any of those pills at his cabin. When he performed the autopsy, the state medical examiner found amitriptyline in Bell's system, but at that time, no one knew how the prescription drug got there. Friedrichs testified he had no idea how Bell came to have the prescription drug in his system. Through questioning from the prosecutor, Friedrichs said he never thought chloroform had anything to do with Bell's death. Bell's family also filed civil suits, and Friedrichs gave a deposition under oath in April 1999. At the time of the deposition, Friedrichs had never been charged with any crimes. Friedrichs probably thought he'd gotten away with murder when he testified for the civil case. He said that when he found him, Bell was not breathing and he did not have a heartbeat. Those simple statements of fact are in sharp contrast to the crazy story he told jurors of a smart preteen drinking chloroform, then engaging in lengthy conversations. In his remarks to the jury, Ciliberti said Bell should have gone on to a successful life, but he said Bell choked to death on his vomit after Friedrichs gave him a prescription drug to make him sleepy and then pressed chloroform against his face. Ciliberti also said Bell died lying in his own vomit with a pedophile who attempted to have sex with him standing over top of him. In less than an hour after the trial concluded, the jury returned a guilty verdict. They did not recommend mercy. At the sentencing, Fayette County Circuit Judge John Hatcher read a letter into the record that was written by Bell's younger sister. She was only 3 when her brother died. She explained that she cries for her brother and wanted to go to heaven to bring him back home. Friedrichs remains in Mount Olive Correctional Complex, where he's serving a sentence of life without mercy for Bell's death and also additional charges for sex crimes against other students. Thanks for joining me. Thanks to Tommy Siner for his always great work and to Brenda Pinnell for her great technical skills. Please join me next Wednesday for another episode of A Real Crime by Susan Williams.